Hello and welcome to this episode of FinTech Focus TV, brought to you by Harrington Starr, global leaders in financial technology recruitment. Head over to the Harrington Starr website today, where you'll be able to download our brand new documentary, The Era of Convergence, which charts the merger of traditional and decentralized finance. You'll also be able to see our new magazine, The Financial Technologist, with the top 1% Workplace Awards. Enjoy the show and we'll see you soon. Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am really thrilled to be talking to someone who I have known for a very long time. I wanted to have on the show for even longer, and he's an absolute inspiration every single time I talk to him. For those of you who recently watched the Era of Convergence documentary, Gavin was one of the stars of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely delighted to bring to you Gavin Marcus from S&P. Gavin, how are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic, Toby, and love that introduction. And as always, I love our conversations. You mentioned the history there. It's 2010 since, when we first met. And honestly, I think we look great. I mean, I don't think we've changed.
Not on either side. You're getting younger, that's for sure. It's a medical miracle. It's a medical miracle. Gavin, I've loved seeing your career, grow and develop, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk through that a little bit later on.
Sure.
You're doing some really cool stuff at the moment. You moved yourself and the family over to, we first met over here in London. In the IHS move, you moved over to, with the family to Boston, which I know was a tremendous move for you and the family. And I'm so pleased that you guys have all settled in so well over there, and the support of it. And you've spoken to me about how that works and the support you got to do that and how it's worked for you. And it's brilliant to see. But we'll get into that. We'll talk about what you're doing on the regulatory side, which I think is one of if I'm looking at where I think some of the biggest action in financial technology is going to be this year, it would certainly be in that particular space. There's so much happening across regulation globally, let alone in the States, and we're going to get into all of that as well. But before we do it, Gavin, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and then we'll move into a little bit about S&P as well.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Toby. So, look, where I'm at the moment is in a fantastic space. So you talked about IHS Markets now, S&P Global, which is fantastic. What a fantastic company. It's giving me the kind of growth and impetus that's exactly what I need. I love helping people in my day-to-day job, what I'm doing, and kind of build on that. But more on a personal level, I think we're starting the beginning of the year, and one of the things that I'm really passionate about is looking at all areas of my life and what I'm doing. So you're looking at family, finances, always health, trying to look at that aspect as well in their career. And where can you draw inspiration from? And I think that this is the, FinTech Focus TV, fantastic podcast to draw inspiration and listen to all the speakers that you've had on is one of the major areas. And there's a couple of other podcasts that I really draw a lot of inspiration from. And actually, running, I like running to it because it dulls the pain of running. As we get older, it gets more painful and we get slower.
I tell you what, I've been doing a few so far this year on my own. I went out with one of the guys from the office last night, and it was so much more fun actually having someone to chat to than it feels a lot harder when you haven't got either someone in your ear helping you without that or someone next to you doing the same thing, isn't it? I just got to find people who are slow enough for me.
Absolutely, that's it. And my Lucy, middle daughter, 16, training at school now 5-6 days a week. She kills me, absolutely kills me. But no, so that's the podcast.
We're gonna have to do that Central Park one next time. Next time we're both in town at the same time as well.
I've never run in Central Park, so that's.
Have you not? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think that a couple of the others, Diary of a CEO is one that's definitely draw inspiration from. There's another one, The Leadership Enigma, which is also fantastic, which I definitely think is worth watching. And the other one is High Performance Podcast. And that's the one that resonates the most with me in how I try and live my life and how I am in the workplace and what I try and instill in my team. And actually, it's quite interesting because the team that I've kind of built around me, we did, those mapping exercises that you do internally. We have the psychoanalysis on the team and how they're built out. And I was told, we've never seen this before, but somehow you've just brought together a high performance team. We've done the evaluation, and they all kind of fit together. You all fit together like a glove. So,
and tell me, was that deliberate, or is that something which you put together? Because I find this really interesting, because having said, we first started speaking back in 2010. I've seen your career grow really interestingly. Before that, you sort of moved into the sales role, and you're leading a really successful sales division at the moment. And it's not a classic. Your background isn't the classic route roll through to the sort of level and seniority of sales that you're doing at the moment. And I think you've got, and I think what's allowed that and you to do it so well, and we'll come into that in a minute about 2022 and what that was for you. But I think the sort of credibility of yourself as an operator, then to move into that, to be able to talk the language of the end user, goes back very long to probably even 2010. If I think of a salesperson in 2010 in financial technology, it was the cocktail room salesperson, the king of the bar, which I know you can do as well, having been there with you a couple of times.
Oh yeah.
But it maybe you needed a very strong pre-sales team to be able to add the validation to what you were talking about alongside that. I feel what you're able to do, and having spoken to you about your knowledge of the space, your passion for the space, your excitement about the space, is be able to give that authenticity every single time you're selling to it. So it isn't a Barnum and Bailey roll up show. It's about, let me understand you and your problem. Let me speak with credibility about how you can solve that and empathize and understand your position, and then make sure I'm taking as much of the friction out of the sales process as I possibly can. And I'm interested alongside that, and I know you've mentioned before, or just now, about the sort of commitment you have to self-development and improvement. I find that fascinating that accidentally you built that high performance sales team in terms of the complementary skill sets that brought that round. But without that sort of classic sales management training background, so to speak, that selection of team which so many people get wrong, which stifles their ability to hit target so often and build those teams, is a really interesting bit. So talk to me a little bit about everything that I've just thrown at you in that little summation of the career.
No, that's very interesting. I think one of the key things that's really at the core of who I am is the very first manager that I had in South Africa, actually, and first finance company I ever worked for. And he sat me down and he said, look, if there's one piece of advice that I can give you throughout your whole career, it is so important to understand technically what you are doing. Go into the weeds. He said, you don't have to do it day to day. And he said, what I suggest you do is keep that back. But what that enables you to do, it enables you to weed out when people are talking nonsense. Right? It's understanding everyone's job to a very high level, being able to piece that together. Then you become self-sufficient, and that's where you can sell. And I think it's very interesting. You say, not doing sales from day one. I think you are. Everyone has to be selling. You've got to sell yourself in every job you do, in every task you do. The difference is that people just think I'm selling a laptop or I'm selling something physical. I've been selling myself from day one. I came from a small place in Cape Town in South Africa. It's like Brighton, a very small seaside town, and I've sold myself from day one. Going to
It's London. A great place. It's a great spot though, right?
Amazing place. Look, it's phenomenal. Beautiful place to be. I love Cape Town, love South Africa. Has its problems like everywhere else. But I think the bottom line is you've got to sell yourself in whatever you're doing. And that's what I've learned to do. And I'm always like to learn myself. Very curious about something. If someone talks to me, I haven't heard that concept before, I'll go and research and then make sure I start talking about it so that I can understand what they're doing. That's what I've always done. And
just to interject quickly, everything you're talking about there is sort of resonating with one of my favorite books. That's see a few behind me there. One of my, it's probably up there, probably in that pile there. Is To Sell Is Human by Dan Pink. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But the whole concept there is to sell as human is everyone selling, in every single aspect. And exactly what you've spoken about there. I think sometimes we can get too all consumed by the technicality of a sale at various different stages, but it's a personality and relationship play at heart every single time you look in it. And Dan Pink spoke in that book about from buyer beware to seller beware, and he talked about the sort of ability of people to research, to understand, to know, and it's a much more informed community who you're selling to than has ever happened before, because of the advent of the internet and people's knowledge of everything before they get before they come into the sale. So the evolution of the salesperson, and this is probably why I think you've done as well as you have done, is that credibility and that knowledge, as you highlighted there beforehand, gives you that ability to be the trusted advisor, the ability to understand the issue, to be able to deliver it in complementary language that allows people to do it. So I think it's really interesting that.
No, absolutely, and I think the relationship thing is a massive thing there. You know, I'm still friendly with people like that. My first boss, I still talk to him. When I moved to London, we went to rugby together, and I'll never forget that. We talk about maybe France next year. We'll go and watch a game together. I'd love to do that. But that's what it's about. I'm not there to dump something on your desk and then I've sold it and move away. I want to build that relationship. I want to help you with a problem. If I can't help you now, in a year's time, you're going to come to me and say, I have these 5 problems. Is there any way who can help me with that? I get a real sense of satisfaction in being able to do that and help someone sleep better at night and make their job easier and less stressful. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to this interaction. You know, our relationship has been fantastic, and how it's grown, and across the waters, we still manage to keep in contact and do everything. It's just phenomenal. It's that, to me, that's when I feel I've been successful. Is that I have these real connections.
And speaking of that, and going back to that piece about the accidental perfect team that sort of come together from there. As I say, that is something that people strive for, a long way. First and foremost, let's talk about that high performance team, because you guys, we're filming this in January 2023. It's the start of the year. 2022 was I remember sort of sitting out there in New York, and you just eulogizing about the sort of how well the team had settled, how well you were they were doing, and I loved it. I loved sort of seeing that sort of thing, and how well the moves worked out for you there. But when you set out to build it, it was you were very humble to talk about the sort of accidental nature of it all. That the results came out to have that. I know that within that, the same sort of time, you've thought a lot about what complementary looks like and what your team looks like and who you want to hire and how you want to bring it into it there. So if you were to look at that, what are some of the things that you think you could share with people who are watching this, people who are building teams at the moment, particularly in sort of I guess regulatory capital markets technology, who are looking at that sort of stuff, where it's not easy to get, there's a lot of kissing of frogs that goes on in that sort of thing. What are some of the steps that you've done that have allowed you to get that right?
I think that there's a couple of traits that I was looking for. One is that we got on and I could understand from a personal level where they were at. That for me is the start. What are you like as a person? What do you enjoy? What makes you tick? And you can always hear getting boilerplate answers. When someone's just telling you what you want to hear. If someone's open and will actually have a conversation of what they're looking to do, that really resonates. And the other thing is passion. Passion for doing what you do, passion about relationships, passion in making those connections with people. And then beyond that, you've got to go and see whether they can do the job and they've worked in the space and understand it. But I think those 2 points are actually the most important, is the person you're hiring. Because at the end of the day, if you hire somebody that's a high performer, but has aspirations to do things way beyond what the role's going to morph into, that doesn't work. Or if they're going to get bored easily, or if they haven't been honest with you, it's really tough, because you can't gel as a team. And that's, I think, the personal level has been fantastic. We've all gelled so well, and on a personal level, on a professional level, we help each other, and that's that thing. It's about everybody helping each other to work towards a common goal, and I think that's what a high performance team should look like. It's like you really care about each other. And actually, it sparked a thought. I love the analogy of listening to how the New Zealand All Blacks operate. and that is where the captain creates a committee, senior players around them, and they talk to the team, tell them what the goals are. They work through like a punishment system. For example, someone's gone out the night before a match, or they've been doing things they shouldn't do against the rules. They've all come together, and then they actually start chastising each other as a team. It shouldn't
player-led holding of standards. I absolutely agree with that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that makes such a big difference. You know,
do you know what? I love what you're talking about there, because both you and I have spent many an hour talking about the sort of high performance sport and high performance business, and how the two sort of merge in between it. I'm and it's one of my great passions at looking at performance within that. And what you've spoken about there is something which a guy called Simon Hartley, sports psychologist, business psychologist, spoke to us as a business about, which meant that we hire in exactly the same way, person first. So we look at three things: the person, the professional, and the third part is the recruiter. So in your the salesperson in your world. So if you're looking at it as a salesperson first and saying, right, what's this person done? Where's their CV? Who they sold to? What's their book, etc., etc. It's almost completely irrelevant in terms of that you want them to understand that the book. You want to see the portability of certain relationships, etc., etc. But someone selling for a from a small vendor through to to an enterprise vendor is doing a completely different job, and people get seduced sometimes by the name around that individual rather than the person itself. Flipping that, and we'll do the same. We'll see someone who's been a biller in certain companies, who's an avalanche of one key client that's been feeding them jobs. That's turned off, which is why they're looking. And all of a sudden, you've overpaid on someone who's being led by the product as opposed to by the by their work. When you flip that around the other way, and you're saying the other two things you're looking for is, number one, the person first. Is that person is the one where you're going to get the discretionary effort for, the one who's going to hold the standards for themselves and each other, the one who's going to drive the average further forward, the one who cares and is passionate about what they're doing and isn't just coming in to do a job. That then ties into the professional there afterwards, which is someone who cares about what they're doing, who wants to learn, who's a sponge, who wants to be the expert in the field, who's taking all those sort of things out, who's going to be well presented, on time, respectful of others, a key team player, etc., or whatever it is that you're looking for within that professional environment. And then, you want to make sure they can do the job. And if they're slightly under par in their ability to do the job so far, if they've got the other two, that bit will come up a hell of a lot quicker than getting someone up there who hasn't got the other two the other way around. And I think that's it's wonderful common sense that you've spoken about there. But is it common practice? I wager probably not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is the thing when doing the recruiting, and I guess the sales is a different animal, because if you're recruiting for a technical job, the person has to be able to do the technical job and have the technical expertise, because from day one they've got to go and do daily tasks. So I think what a lot of people do is they give them tests, and you can't pass the test. I'm really sorry, you're not working for us. That's so rigid. It really is rigid, because I think that there are some people that can learn really quickly and will want to learn really quickly and will end up being great advocates that you kind of passing along by having that rigidity. So that's where I like to have. I can understand what someone's been doing before, and really work out if they're going to fit. For example, where you talk about different types of products you're selling, or we're talking technology. If you have something off the shelf and you just, Microsoft Office, great example. Do you need a word processor? Do you need an Excel spreadsheet? This is what it does. You know what it does. Do you want it? Yes or no? It's quite binary. But if you're doing a solution sell, you really have to understand the person's problems from start to finish, and really have to build out the workflows and thinking, how can I solve these problems at a very high level? And then you've got to interact with the different teams within your organization to see, can we do that? Technically, how do we do it? How do we put it all together? So you have to have those concepts and that sort of thinking. Otherwise, you can't unpick what the problems are. You have to find the pain points. And how do you find pain points from people? Talking. Right? So many times we're going to conversation. If you just go and present and just throw your products out there, and they're like, thanks very much, but we're not really interested. That's it. You close the door. But if you take it the other tack and say, well, what are you doing today? What are your problems? And really try and tease it out. That's what I enjoy. That's why I like helping people and kind of piecing things together and doing that troubleshooting.
And I think that's the absolute right way to do it in this day and age. That sort of pushing product and is so far gone from what from what people are looking for. And I think that sort of empathy of understanding of saying that let me understand what your problem is and let me bespoke what you need to have and how we can tailor that to your specific needs is the classic way of building that. I want to quantify this because as we said, 2022 was a stellar year for you and the team at S&P Global, etc. So tell us what that looks like. What did what I know you'll get a smile beaming across your face with all this because I know how proud you are of what happened. But tell us a little bit about the year that's been.
Well, just building the team out. How as a global business, we've just it's just a bit exploded. It's done really well, and kind of the fact that I'm now managing a team in the US and building that out, it's just going from strength to strength. And all these the success in terms of every deal you sell, that I get excited by that point because I'm helping a client, and now I get to see all these other guys get excited, and that for me is the big thing, is when they're going to get to the end of the year and they're going to be really proud of what they've done. Then I know I've done my job, and then kind of build on everything and get the success there. But it's just the business that we built and the team we have around us, I think, is just phenomenal. It's a great place to work. I love the company. S&P as a company, the brand, the people in it, the leadership. That's amazing, and that's actually that's what inspires me. I want to be that type of leadership that really inspires people and gets them going, because that's what they've done to me. That's why I moved over. I wouldn't have taken the risk to move my whole family over with a company that I didn't see a long-term vision with. And
this is an interesting thing for me because so often when you see a merger happen or acquisition happen, you see sort of different cultures come in. And I think what's really interesting about you is we've spoken before about the sort of esteem that you held Lance in with IHS and where that went. And you were so I know how passionate you were about IHS and working that business. S&P coming through as that's evolved has maintained that same sort of the way you look at it, and that it's a seamless. It seems like a seamless transition for it, which is a great position to be in, right?
Absolutely, I've been so impressed. It's like, honestly, the leaders top to bottom, the new S&P leadership that I've met as well, everyone is just all singing from the same hymn sheet, which is just amazing. And that's what really gives you the drive to just want to do well and kind of really
energizing, right?
Oh, so energizing, absolutely. I love what I do. It's just incredible, and that's just going to keep on doing that, keep on growing, keep on helping people. That's it. Like really help the.
So 2022 was about assembling the dream team and having them perform at that sort of level and really sort of moving that further forward. 2023 is exciting for me in so many different areas. But if I look at if I'm sat here with my crystal ball at the moment and looking at where the landscape is in financial services and where I think some of the most important work that's going to be done is, where some of the most voluminous work is going to be done, and is where the action's at, you'd almost certainly point towards regulatory technology. And what you and the team are doing is right at the heart of that. So tell me a little bit about what you think some of the issues, some of that your clients are going to be facing. Tell me a little bit about some of the opportunities that are faced that appear from that, and what 2023 is going to look like in the sector.
I think from what we've seen, particularly in terms of the crypto space and what's happened, obviously not mentioning names, don't like to do that, but I think what that's really shone a light on is risk and compliance, and making sure you have your risk thought out properly, you have your processes in place, you're doing your KYC, you're doing your checks on everything that all your vendors are due, third-party risk, and then when it comes to regulatory compliance, that you're really tight on that. Having the processes and systems in place is going to be really, really important to show the regulators that you are doing the right thing, and that you have, you're a safe business. And in our space in particular, the regulatory reporting space, trade and transaction, this change is coming about all the time globally. We've seen the CFTC rewrites, was the Dodd-Frank reform came out 5th of December last year, was a big change. In Japan, they've got a rewrite coming out. There's the EMIR refit, which is another derivatives change as well in Europe. And you've got in APAC as well, mass ASIC changes, and Canada's got change. There's just so much regulatory change coming about. You need a partner, you need a provider who's going to help you with that. And I think that's where, we're going to see a lot of work, and that's where we want to help a lot of people. We have subject matter experts. We're doing a lot of webinars, and we're going to do a lot of events. We're at a lot of conferences, and I just implore people to look at our thought leadership. We're there to help. We want to make it as seamless as possible for people, and that's where we want to kind of really focus our attention on.
I think that's really noticeable. So I think you're one of the more present people on LinkedIn, and I always look at people's LinkedIn feeds and say, right, is it promotion or is it value? And I think what's very noticeable about what you and the S&P team have been very good at is looking to do it by adding value. It's not just post for post's sake. It's like, how can we put something in there that adds value to that community? How can we help? How can we be the guide? And I think you guys have always been very good at that. So if you guys are watching this and want, have regulation on your agenda, as an influencer, which I call you now on the LinkedIn scene, I think the things that you put out there, Gavin, are consistently valuable for people to look at, which helps them do that. And then coming in to speak to you and the team is going to help after that as well, I'm sure.
No, thank you. And I hope my dad would be proud and say, you shouldn't have been a doctor, you're much better as an influencer. And so that's it. So
that was nearly the route, wasn't it? It's nearly it was nearly the doctor that stole you away from financial services.
Well, there you go. But funny enough,
medicine's loss was that it was FinTech's gain, right?
Well, there you go. But actually, my eldest daughter Emma is studying nursing, so there you go.
Just skip a generation.
Correct. Exactly that. I call it Doctor of Finance. There you go. Finance and regulation. It's all good. But
curing all the ills in a different space. So just coming back to that sort of the issues that we're going to be seeing, or the opportunities that we're going to be seeing within FS, as you say, there is a global global wave of regulation, and it's all slightly different in different areas. If you're there to pick something there, which you're saying, look, if you are a customer in your demographic at the moment, and you're saying there's one thing which you've got to get right in 2023, where you, as someone who's passionate about helping, are going to be able to add the biggest value. What sort of nugget of advice would you give there to say this is something there which should be on your radar, and this is how we can help it?
I think definitely just having a conversation with a firm like ourselves, because depending on who you're using, if you're using another vendor, you're doing it internally yourself, have a discussion, see where there are pain points that we can help. It might not be everything, might not be a rip and replace, it might just be certain elements. But I think there's a cost saving to be had, and there's also a resource saving to be had, which is a big thing. We're doing it for a whole lot of clients across the globe. We've got a great network and of clients. We've got the whole thing about regulation is interpreting it correctly and making sure that you form part of the pack. To be an outlier, it's not great.
Not what you want to be. There's certain tides to swim against, isn't there? And that's not one of them. Not
correct. Exactly that. Exactly that. So that's what I'd say. Just have a conversation. That we love having the conversations. We love talking about, is there anywhere we can help? Any areas that you're really finding hard, regions, or any asset classes you're finding tough to kind of report on, or just understanding the regulation is another thing. We're there across the board to help and have expertise in every facet. So partnership, that's what we want to say. We want to partner with everybody to help you do the best you can in what you need to do day to day.
Sounds like a good plan to start off with. Right, I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish in a little unorthodox way this time out, because we mentioned it before about our sort of our shared passion for sports and performance. We were talking beforehand about the North London football divide with Arsenal and Tottenham. I know that's something which you're passionate about alongside that as well. Tell me a little bit about what we're seeing in leadership from what's happening there at the moment, and how that can equate to what people are watching might be thinking.
No, absolutely. Let's take Arsenal for the first thing. I know my father-in-law, if he's watching this, a diehard Tottenham fan, watched them as a kid, literally just walking into the grounds without tickets and watching them. So he's always been passionate. I think Arsenal last year, obviously, were kind of lost their way. And the transformation has been amazing. And I think definitely Arteta, where he's come from, never having been a manager per se outright, has done an amazing job. He's I think we talked about his trust in the process, and he's going through the process of building a young team and really doing well with
and being trusted by his leadership as well to be able to trust that process.
Very much so. I mean, they could have sacked him last year when he didn't make Champions League, and that's no one would have batted an eyelid. But he's really come good. And then you look at Antonio Conte. Obviously, he is a serial winner. I do think he's probably finding a little bit frustrating in Tottenham, like most people do. We have a great team by good players, but for some reason just can't really get to that extra level of getting silverware or getting to the top of the league. But there again, he needs to be given the resources by management. And if he's given the resources to stay, to actually build the right team.
Yeah. So it comes back down to the same thing, doesn't it? Be given time to build, put the right people into the right positions, and then trust the route which you're going down, and give it time to feed. I think it's a classic story that comes across to something which many sales leaders could look at and think that there's a few lessons to be taken out of that story. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
Gavin, listen, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure as always. Tell me two things just before we wrap up. Who should be talking to you this year? Number one, and number two is what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So I say definitely the best way to get in touch. I'll take the one that's an easy one. That's we have the website, S&P Global website. You'll find us as our CapTech regulatory reporting products. And I'd say any financial firm that's doing trading, and you're more than likely going to have a trade and transaction reporting issue or requirement. So it doesn't matter what product you're trading, we can cover them. So just happy to have a general discussion or see how we can help.
Absolutely superb. Look, Gavin, it's been well worth the wait. I've been talking to you about coming on this show for a long time. It's absolutely brilliant to have you on it. I'm sure you'll be back again very soon. Now you've broken the duck, it's going to be a regular thing. Absolutely.
I love talking. So.
I love listening to it. It's always a pleasure. I'll be out in New York in March, so I'm sure we'll catch up then and chat more over a nice steak and a glass of red. So I'm looking forward to that already, mate.
Absolutely. After dry January.
After dry January, that's why I'm talking March.
Exactly.
Gavin, have a great one. Thanks ever so much for coming on the show, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon in another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Toby.